Hey folks, it's Tom, your Free Will Prepper. So I was going to do a video on this one. It's a kind of an unfortunate case here. So this Suburban behind me had a bad transmission. And I took a look at it and just double checked everything, and sure enough, it was a bad transmission. This was back when it was still like 80 degrees outside this summer. Well, late summer or maybe early fall. So I recommended a shop that I know to do a transmission, put a used transmission in this. And it turned out like the used transmission they got first was bad. They sent it out to a rebuilder, had it repaired, put it in. Then my understanding is it started slipping like from second to third. So they pulled it out, and then there's a process of transmissions and valve bodies going to rebuilders for a couple months. They finally got everything together and got the transmission working, but the brakes are locking up on it. Now, I told this guy when I looked at it, like, you might try putting some Lucas transmission treatment in it, because I've seen it work before on transmissions and bring some pretty dead ones back to life for a while. And he put some in. Unfortunately, he put it in the brakes and not in the transmission. So, you know, the transmission treatment makes rubber seals swell, especially neoprene, stuff like that. So it's probably swelled up the seals and the calipers, maybe the hoses, maybe the master cylinder, and who knows if the ABS pump has lived. So I'm going to take a look at it here, and what I'm going to do is just start by taking it for a test drive until things start locking up. I guess it rolls okay at first, and then it starts locking up. Then I've got my digital thermometer, and we'll just go around and take a temperature reading on each of these rotors and see if one or two of them is really the culprit. My hope is that maybe it's to probably the closest wheel or whatever, but since those back wheels were acting up, it's probably throughout the whole system by now. But then, you know, we'll have to flush it and at least change calipers and maybe a master cylinder. Hoping maybe I can get them some used parts out of a junkyard. Try to get this old girl up and going for them. And they have a lot of kids, and they need their vehicle, and they've been without it quite a bit through this whole transmission ordeal. So I'm just going to start by kind of taking a temperature reading here, see where we're at. 41 degrees. So it's cooled all the way down since they've dropped it off. The other thing I'm going to do is just kind of look at the brakes, and I'm seeing some shiny parts on that rotor there, but it's not like ground all the way down. This one also has a lot of wear where you can see it's eating into the rotors. So not a cheap mistake, because from the look of the rotors on the other side, they're hit bad enough that they need replaced as well. All right, so one of the things I'm noticing just right off the bat here is, let me clean off this lens. So I've got an ABS light. I've got a brake light with a P and an exclamation point. The brake pedal seems pretty firm, but I just want to check and see if the sparking brake's engaged. First, let me turn on a light. So here's the parking brake, and there's the release for it. There's like no resistance to that parking brake whatsoever. So that's interesting. Like, that cable's probably broken. That's what it feels like. But why is the light on? Alright, I'm taking it for a drive and we'll see. So far, nothing definitive here. I like 5 more degrees on this one after a quick toot around the block. So I can definitely though feel that the brakes aren't always releasing great. When I hit the brakes at a stop sign, take my foot off, it's kind of like, okay, come on, and then they loosen up. That's exactly what my truck used to do when it had a bad brake hose. So I'm gonna take this for a little bit more of a drive and see if any of these are getting significantly hot out at the wheels or what's going on. See if I can figure out if one's locking up more than the other or whatever. 512 degrees Fahrenheit. $225. 171. 116. This one's the really bad one. Depends on how and where I measure it. I'll measure it right at the caliper here, and then I'll measure it right. It's cooling down now, 390. So I had 500 degrees. This is the one that feels like it's locking up. It starts pulling this direction. You can feel it dragging the rotor. Once it heats up, it's warped. Shakes the wheel a little. Turn the guy off. This sure feels like a bad brake hose to me. The pedal's getting stiff. You push down, and then it just kind of hangs and hangs and hangs, and then it eventually slowly loosens up. Could be a bad caliper. Could be a bad hose. I'm just going to recommend that they maybe do both on here and then we flush the whole system out. It would make sense. Master cylinder is right here. This is the closest wheel to it. The rest of these, 150, 170. I'm not going to worry about that after a good long drive, stopping. That's normal enough. This one, being up to 512 was pretty bad. I mean, it was hanging up bad enough. I'm like, I'm gonna hurry up and get this thing home before I get stuck. So, I think the damage here may not be as bad as we're thinking. I think caliper hose here, flush the whole system out, power bleed it, maybe power bleed it, flush it out twice. And if all of the bleeders open up on me and everything, will be good. If I have bleeders break off, then we might have to do more than one caliper. And then I'm gonna say I'll give it a long test drive after that, and we'll see. The rotor is, I'm not gonna touch it right now, of course, to feel it. I think it's savable. It's definitely warped a little. I'll give them the option to replace them if they want, but we'll see. Alright, I'm out here working on this guy. Let me grab a light. I'll show you kind of what I've done so far. I've gone ahead and we put I got used parts. So, got a new master cylinder, cleaned it out. I'm replacing that. I've already put a used caliper on over here. Now, it could use pads and rotors before too long, but I don't want to have them invest all that money until we see if this is going to work out, And then I got doing a caliper over here. The old one's off, and I'm replacing this upper ball joint. I've got it out, and then I'm going to do the rears too. I don't have it up in the air yet, so there's the 2 old season up calipers there. Here's one more used caliper. And then I've got 2 new calipers that they actually had at the salvage yard on the shelf. So I got the 2, those are brand new for the rear. And we're just going to go ahead and replace those 2. That way the only thing left is the ABS pump. We'll have to see if it lives. We're just going to flush it out a whole bunch. I got my power bleeder up here. What's this one? Motive Products power bleeder. I just have the GM hookup for it, but you can get all the attachments for them. So yeah, that's where I'm at. I just got the ball joint out, and I'm also the two front brake hoses. I'm just replacing those since those calipers were definitely hanging. Although I don't know that they were bad in that way, but they're pretty rusty, crusty, and about to come apart, so they need replaced anyway. And then here's the ball joint, which I'm glad he said yes to replace this, because it's one of the worst ones I've seen. You can see that's about to come on apart there. It was also about to punch through the top right there. So, yeah. I had about 2 more bumps left in it before catastrophe. Not sure what was holding that together. I guess lots of prayer, maybe. That's a pretty bad one. I mean, that's probably the worst one I've seen on a vehicle that drove in that hasn't actually come apart. So, I mean, sometimes I think, that's why I don't like to take customers' cars on too long of a test drive, because, I could have been out test driving that, swerving back and forth a little bit, seeing what was going on, and boom. Next thing I know, I'm in an accident. So, I mean, sometimes you have to test drive customers' vehicles, but I do it at a bare minimum. Only when I have to, because, you just don't know. The other ball joints are making a little noise when you turn or whatever, but they're not loose. And they're not, if they are a little loose, they're not loose like that. They're not they're not dangerous yet. But that one is like danger right there. So I'm getting ready to go up to the AutoZone or the Advance here and pick up the rest of the parts, the brake hoses and stuff. And then I'm going to work on putting this back together. Alright guys, so nice new parts, couple new front brake hoses. The rear ones I'm just flushing out. And then these I'm replacing just because caliper sticking, may have a swollen hose. And the other thing is they're just so rusty and crusty and falling apart. Right at the end where the crimp is, they're getting real rusty. But the rear brake hoses look like they've been replaced some point recently, and the calipers actually look that way too, but since I got some other new calipers, we're doing those. Got the new ball joint, so that's what it's supposed to look like compared to the old one. And you can see, like on this one, you can't move that by hand. That's that one. And then I got a bunch of brake fluid, so we can flush this baby out with the power bleeder. Alright, so I got these 2 rear calipers off here and just kind of cleaned them up and re-lubed them. This has double piston calipers on it. The new ones that are off the shelf at the junkyard, single piston, so they won't fit. Which is okay. When I took these off, it was just straight up brake fluid back there. None of that Lucas had made it back there yet. They're nice and free. The only thing is that the bleeders were completely seized in them. So I had to go ahead and use my normal tricks. So one of the things I do on these is I take a drill bit that will fit in there, and it's just slightly larger, drill it, then spray that hole in with some WD-40 too, just for what good that might do, and then turn the drill bit over backwards, hammer it in, snap it off in there, and then heat it up with the torch so that this expands against that bit, and it makes this nice and solid. You can really get some torque on it then. And of course they round it off, so I just used my bolt extractor set, which is over here. I have a Craftsman bolt extractor set right here. You've watched my videos, you've seen this before. And then these just have teeth, and they grab in there and bite into that. And once that's done, I just went ahead and hit it with my DeWalt XR impact, and it'll snap them loose. I have much better luck with an impact than I do trying to get these out with leverage. You want it hitting them. I was able to get them both out. Got a couple new ones put in there. I just get these little assortment kits at AutoZone. So got them all lubed up there. They're ready to go back on the vehicle. Now I'll take you out here and show you what I've done so far here. Is while I had the old hoses on, I ran some brake fluid through, flushed out this front system till it was running clear. Then I put the new calipers on. Here, you can tell that rotor has been hot, but right now I want to see if this is all going to work out before I would tell them to get new rotors and stuff. Probably just drive it till it's going to need pads and rotors soon anyway. But I got the new brake line on here. The other thing I ran into on this side is just that this fitting here, when it came out, it stripped off the bottom threads. So I had to get a thread file and clean that up to get it to thread back in. So that took a whole time. This bolt snapped off when I pulled it out, so I had to drill it, put in a coarse thread, 3/8 bolt there with a lock washer to hold that in. I got the ABS wires mounted back correctly again. They weren't on there right before. So we got the new hoses, and then I've got the calipers off back here. So these pads and stuff are still nice and free. Oh, see, it's falling out. So I'm not going to worry about doing any of that. They're free. They'll be fine. And so then we'll get the calipers on. But I've got the old lines here hanging, and I'm leaving these old lines on here too, because the brake fluid, the transmission treatment really didn't get back this far. Then I'm just going to go ahead and pressure bleed this, or power bleed it, or however they say it. So I'll set that up and kind of show you how I do it. But again, I use this little guy right here. I actually learned about this product from Faye Hadley. I'll put a link to her channel down below. She uses one of these. I believe it was her. And so I ordered one. It actually works really well. Alright, so I got this hooked up. I fill the master cylinder up about halfway, and then you can put a bottle of brake fluid in this side, and then you just pump it up like so. And it's at about 8 pounds. And then if we come back here to these brake lines, you can see they're dripping. And like, I'm gonna flush these out really, really good. Not just till they're clear, like normal, but I'm going to run a couple bottles through the system. So we'll use most of this bottle here to clean these all up. Let's make sure all that crap's out of it. And this will actually take the brake fluid right out of the bottom and keep filling up the master cylinder. And I'll just kind of let this run till it's at 0 psi and keep emptying out those little cups. And I'm going to run about 4 big bottles of brake fluid through this system once it's all said and done, with the final bottle being the final bleed with the bleeder screws. But this is a super handy tool if you're working by yourself and you don't have to have somebody pump and hold. And a lot of these newer systems, you really need to power bleed them. And then there's a service mode for the ABS pump, a bleed mode, that you need to turn on with your scan tool to make sure you get all the air and stuff out of the system. I want to say this is like $60 for this GM setup. Like the master kit with all the different adapters is like a couple hundred or something. But you can buy the little individual adapters from them as you get other stuff that you work on. So I just have the GM one for now. But you can get different adapters here that'll screw on and go on this guy. So, alright, I'm going to let this bleed out. We'll see where we're at. Alright, I got my 3rd bottle of brake fluid in to the power bleeder. And I've just got all the bleeders cracked open here. Bleeding stuff out. That one's just kind of tripping there. And a little more. Almost dripping. And this one's dripping. This one back one's not dripping so much. Let me go play with it here. I mean, it's dripping. Just very slowly. Let me take the bleeder up out of here. Make sure it's not plugged or something. Some dirt. chunk of dirt, chunk of rusty crap in there. Screw this back in here. There we go. There's just been, I mean, you can see it's still bringing out little chunks of dirt and rust. And crap from these old brake lines. I don't think the brake fluid's ever changed on this. Let's see. But we're just gonna do this bottle and then we'll run a fourth bottle through. And what I might do on the fourth bottle is close off the front ones and let the back ones flush out. Alright, I got 3 bottles of brake fluid through it. It's coming out perfectly clear now, no nothing. So I'm good with that. I won't have to charge them for a fourth bottle. And we'll get the tires back on it and take it for a drive and see what's going on with it. Alright folks, so I have took it for a test drive. It needs a front hub. It's getting real hot up there after an extended period on the highway, on the interstate, and it starts vibrating. And it's not loose; it's tight. It's unfortunate, you know. I wish that this would have done it all. The good news is the brakes are working fine; they're not hanging up at all. None of the other rotors are hot. This rotor was a little hot, but it's because the hub is bad. It's not the brakes hanging up. So, you know, the other ones that were getting warm, they're cool to the touch after a nice long drive, lots of stops. So, sweet. And the caliper's not hanging up anymore. You know, I'm not seeing a bunch of brake dust, and the caliper itself isn't hot. It's hot in the middle of that rotor right by the hub. So probably from it getting so hot with the brakes being hung up, my guess is, you know, it probably got 800 degrees a few times at least. It's probably just nuked that hub, melted the grease and crap out of it. So it was probably about to go anyway. So we're going to do that. This car needs all kinds of stuff. I mean, you know, I run into this a lot with my customers. I'm trying to keep their old car safe. You know, fix major things like this ball joint, right? That is about to fall apart, and keep them stopping and going and safe, right? But I can't necessarily fix every single thing that's wrong with the vehicle. It would just be cost prohibitive. It would exceed the value of the vehicle. I know this guy just spent like, I think $1,300 on the transmission, getting that replaced with a used one. And it had to be done a couple times. It was under warranty, but I know they had his vehicle for a long time. That second time, we'll try to find a good transmission to put in it. And so right now, as it sits for the brake work, you know, I'm using used parts and stuff, which saved him money, but he's at $420 with the labor and parts. And he'll be into me for about another $100 for the hub. So I ordered the hub on Amazon with free Prime 1-day shipping, so that'll save them some money, because you know they want like $125 for one in advance. You can get them for around $50 online plus the tax, you know. So try to get this done for him. He's like, his family lives out of town, and I got to haul the whole family out of town for Christmas. So I'm trying to get it to where it'll at least be safe and reliable enough to get him there. And I don't think he wants to take it on that long of a road trip with a bad hub that's heating up like that. That spells catastrophe, you know. Normally, I mean, it might make it, you know. It might just get really hot and make it, but it might not. So that's where I'm at, you know. That's what I do. I'm just going to go ahead and end the video here. It just needs a hub. That's no big deal. That's just a, you know, do you take out the 3 bolts in the back, or you break them off if they won't come out, and I have extras, and you just hammer your heart out until that seized old hub comes out of the knuckle, and you put the new one in. You clean it up with the, I have a little carbide cutter, clean it out with a little bit, and slide the new one in, hook it all back up. That might fix his ABS issue too, because that is the wheel speed sensor that is saying it's bad. If it's not in the wiring, that might fix it. But that is what it is. That's the kind of stuff I do a lot for people. Although I'm normally kind of shut down this time of year, the weather's been pretty nice. You know, it's been in the 40s during the day. I was working on it late last night and it got pretty darn cold though. It was getting down towards 20. So I just come in the garage here, warm up by one of the heaters, and then go back out and do some more work. You know, that's what I'm doing. I need to get the garage more cleaned out. I got this Kawasaki here that I'm kind of working on. It's in my way right now. So this old girl's got an oil leak in this bevel assembly right here. It's leaking oil like crazy. You can see it leaked all over my floor, and I put a pan under there now. But I gotta go ahead and put this back together. I kind of started to tear some stuff off just to look, and so the problem is the engine has to come out to get that off, and you know, it's quite a bit of labor. And I think he just uses this for tooting around the farm or whatever, tooting around the homestead. It's got broken exhaust, but the main thing was his throttle cable broke. So I ordered the throttle cable. That was only like $7 or $8, and then I'll get that replaced for him. When I quoted him labor and all the O-rings and gaskets and parts, you know, I was looking at 3 to 4 hours labor and all the parts. So, you know, it's gonna be a few $100 to fix that oil leak. So I think what he's gonna do is just, you know, keep buying some cheap Rural King oil and dumping it in and driving it around. Because that's all he really can do, right? It does need a muffler. It's all broken, but hey. It also really needs a fuel shutoff valve, but it doesn't leak when it's on. But if you shut it off, it drips. So, you know, not the end of the world, I guess. There's just an O-ring and stuff that goes in there, so you don't have to replace that whole valve. But, you know, try to get this thing running good enough for him to... I don't know if he uses it to haul hay around the farm or uses it for hunting or what he does. We'll see what we can do. It's probably hunting. It's hunting season. He seems like the kind of guy that would hunt. I don't like to kill things. I mean, I don't have anything against people that hunt or anything. I just personally, I'd rather get my food at the grocery store when no animals were harmed. So, it's just me. All right, so I guess that's just kind of what's going on around here right now. Trying to get things organized in the garage and set up. But that little power bleeder works really good. I'd highly recommend those. I think I have it listed in my Amazon store with all my like favorite Amazon tools. I want to say it was like 50 or 60 bucks. So definitely probably worth it. All right, I'll talk to y'all later. It's Tom, Frugal Prepper. Everybody be happy, be frugal, have a great Christmas, and good times.